Yeah, we back. Now, we got a jam-packed video for y'all today, man. And today, we're going to talk about the women as well. The women are definitely going to take up some of the spotlight in today's video. As you already know, the United States, the other day, had sent a high-ranking diplomat by the name of Victoria Nuland to speak with the military leaders in Niger. Unfortunately for her, her access was denied. She was not able to meet the new military leaders or the detained president, Mohamed Bazoum. But due to the fact that she made the trip to Niger on such short notice, it really highlighted to me the unity between white men and white women, European men and European women as it relates to their political and economic interests. And today, we are going to highlight some of the black women that is standing in solidarity with their black men against the Western powers. So, you know, it's a beautiful thing, man. I know in this series, I spoke about certain women like the Senegalese foreign minister who said that she is ready for war. She is ready to accompany ECOWAS, the European Union, the Western powers in restoring Mohamed Bazoum back to power. But today we're going to talk about the black women that are standing in solidarity with their black men, ready to defend their territory against the Western powers. I feel like we don't highlight those women enough. We focus so much on the black women that's playing both sides of the fence, riding for the other side. We never really acknowledge the black women that is riding for the black man. And we have to spend more time doing that, because when I see these women, I see our foremothers, I see our ancestors, I see our legendary women that came before us. Sometimes, especially for those living in the West, you may feel like that type of woman is no longer in production. That type of woman is no longer available. You might feel like that type of woman is no longer being manufactured. It's been discontinued, but no, brother, it's still here. And today we're gonna pay homage to them towards the end of the video. But let's get into it, man. We got a lot to talk about today. Take a look up on the screen. A group of 94 French senators have written an open letter to President Emmanuel Macron in which they criticize the government over its Africa policy, which has triggered anti-French sentiment across the continent. 94 French senators sent an open letter to Macron this Monday on August 7th. They denounced the failure of Operation Barkhane and say that they fear seeing France completely lose its place in Africa. Listen, man, they feeling the pressure. And like I said, we got a jam-packed video for you today. So buckle up. Let's get into it. Take a look up on the screen. I have the open letter that was written by the French senators, and I'm going to read it for you today. Let's go. They said, after France-Afrique, are we condemned to the fading away of France in Africa? For several years, we have been calling on our successive governments about the position and role of France in Africa. To simply label us, as some ministers have done, as nostalgics of France-Afrique is an absurdity that has been used to conceal failures and setbacks. Today, Niger, yesterday, Mali, the Central African Republic, Burkina Faso have rejected France, French forces, French companies at our expense following the failure of Operation Barkhane. Here come the Wagner militias, scarcely concerned about human rights or democracy, but perfectly available for all dictators or leaders who maintain power by rallying their populations against the former colonial power. This movement in sub-Saharan Africa is spreading with demonstrations and anti-French acts even in countries considered close to us, such as Ivory Coast and Senegal. In Northern Africa, there have been disappointments there as well. President Tebboune, who came to power under difficult circumstances due to the Hirak, alternates between warmth and coldness, sometimes talking about rapprochement and an official visit, and sometimes referring to the French Great Satan responsible for all the ills of the Algerian people. This pendulum movement is leading many French officials to question the 1968 agreements, which no longer make sense anyway. In Morocco, the French hesitations regarding the Sahara and the foreign ministry's balancing policy with Algeria are pushing the royal palace to seek military and economic partners outside of Paris. Man, them boys feeling the pressure. Let's get back into it. In Tunisia, the erratic president is alternately turning to the United States, the European Union, the Arab world, and increasingly less towards France, which no longer holds a privileged role. That's good to see you. Mr. President, we are not nostalgic for, I don't know what that is, Sovereign de Brazza. We do not dream of French West Africa or French Equatorial Africa. We know that the Foucault era is completely over. However, we do not understand the evolution of French policy in Africa, both in terms of the military aspect and the concept of co-development, as well as cultural and linguistic cooperation. Today, the former Franc-Afrique is being replaced by military Russa-Afrique, economic China-Afrique, or diplomatic America-Afrique. And unfortunately, what can we say about the regression of Francophonie compared to the English language? Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs and Defense and the entire Senate during a debate on French policy in Africa alerted you in the spring. Isn't it time to overhaul our vision of Africa and its link with France? You have had the intention on several occasions. It is probably time. While Africa, a friendly continent, no longer seems to understand France and is increasingly contesting its role and presence. For our part, we do not resign ourselves to our gradual disappearance on the entire continent. We ask you to accept, Mr. President, the expression of our most respectful sentiments. Bruh, what do you mean? What do you mean that you do not resign yourself to your disappearance on the continent? It's not your continent, bro. It's the black man's continent, bro. So if the black man don't want you in his house, there is nothing for you to say, bro. Pack your bags, my guy. Pack your bags, call an Uber, book your plane ticket, get the fuck out. Let's continue. Niger's ousted president is reduced to eating dry rice as hopes for a peaceful resolution of the coup fade. Let's jump into the article. Mohamed Bazoum said he is being kept isolated and forced to eat dry rice and pasta by the military government who overthrew him and are refusing to cede power despite international pressure. In a series of text messages to a friend, Bazoum said he has been deprived of all human contact. Well, you texting your friends, my guy. Anyways, with no one supplying him food or medicine. Bazoum said he has been living without electricity for a week, as have many Nigerians. Nigeria supplies much of Niger's electricity, but has cut off the power in response to the coup. All of the perishable food he was supplied with has since gone bad, and he is now eating dry pasta and rice. Despite his isolation, Bazoum has been in contact with the outside world. He literally just said he has no human contact. You see, niggas should be lying. Anyway, let's continue. Though denied the chance to speak with the acting U.S. Deputy Secretary, Victoria Nuland, during her latest visit to the capital, Bazoum spoke by phone with her boss, Anthony Blinken, a day later, the State Department said. Uhumudu Mahamadou, the prime minister in Bazoum's government, told French TV that the president was in good spirits despite being held in a catastrophic situation. Bruh, you see, that's why they had to overthrow this administration. Why are you speaking to the French TV? If you are a sovereign nation, why do you have to answer to the French government, the French media, the French citizens? Why are you speaking to the French people? Man, this is why they had to overthrow y'all boys, because I don't understand it. But anyways, let's continue. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Victoria Nuland met with the coup leaders, but they said they refused to allow her to meet Bazoum. She described the mutinous officers as unreceptive to her appeals to start negotiations and restore constitutional rule. The United States has 1,100 military personnel in the country and has seen Niger as a strategic and reliable partner in the region. Still, Nuland made more headway than other delegations. A previous ECOWAS delegation was prevented from leaving the airport. It's unclear how much coordination is involved in the various mediation efforts. Some experts have worried that if the work is not coordinated, it could undermine ECOWAS. I think the U.S. would come to a modus vivendi with this junta if the junta proved particularly amenable to U.S. interests. Okay, so it's not about democracy. It's not about none of that bullshit. If the military government is open to U.S. interests, they're willing to acknowledge the military government. So it was never about democracy. It was never about that bullshit. It was about your interests. You think we stupid? Nah, man, fuck out of here. Let's continue. But that doesn't seem to be on the table for now. Alexander Thurston, an assistant professor of political science at the University of Cincinnati. Now, let's continue. A former Niger rebel launches anti-coup movement as the impasse continues. Now, for those of y'all who watched my video the other day, I believe it was called Mali versus France, right? I told you, it's one thing to grab some power. It's one thing to establish some power, but then you got to defend the power. Then you got to battle against the external and internal influences that are seeking to undermine your plan and undermine your interests, right? Like I told you, the president in Mali, he already suffered multiple assassination attempts, multiple overthrow attempts, and he is still standing. So like I told you, the government in Niger, they only been in power a couple weeks. So we have to see, are they going to be able to still stand tall in the face of internal and external pressure and internal and external aggression? Hey man, like I told you, politics, it's real life shit, man. Let's continue. Take a look up on the screen. In a statement seen on Wednesday, Risa Agbula said his new Council of Resistance for the Republic aims to reinstate the overthrown president, Mohamed Bazoum, who has been in detention at his residence since the takeover. Now, as you can see, that's this brother right here, this individual right here. If I'm not mistaken, he is from the ethnic group of the Tuareg people, right? So I believe the military government is majority Hausa Fulani men, but this individual right here, he's Tuareg. So he has launched his own movement, a counter-coup movement against the current military government. He is seeking to reinstate Mohamed Bazoum, and he has made it known to the Western powers that we are aligned with whatever you got in motion, whatever you got planned. We are willing to side with you to overthrow the current military government to reinstate Mohamed Bazoum. So, the House of Fulani versus the Tuareg is kind of like, it's a lot of shit going on, man. Let's continue. And also, I believe this conflict is not only happening in Niger, but also the military government in Mali also is fighting against the Tuaregs. And when I say fighting, I mean literally taking up arms against the Tuaregs in Mali. So now the Tuaregs in Niger are going against the military government in Niger. So, bro, it's a lot of shit going on in West Africa. Now, let's continue. Take a look up on the screen. Agbula's statement said it supports ECOWAS and any other international actors seeking to restore constitutional order in Niger, adding that it would make itself available to the bloc for any useful purpose. Hey, we're gonna see if the military government in Niger is gonna be able to stand tall, just like the military government in Mali and Burkina Faso. We gotta wait and see. Let's continue. Now, take a look up on the screen. This is why I say we're going to talk about the women today. Now, the Italian women have stepped into the fold. The Italian women have stepped onto the scene, riding for their white men, riding for the European men. Take a look up on the screen. The sanctions against Niger are starting to work, according to a European Union Special Envoy, Emanuela Del Rey. She said, there is not enough medicine, food, and electricity is missing, even more than before. The diplomat stressed that if the EU wants to junta to weaken, then the sanctions must be continued. Now, one thing I want to talk about, she said there is not enough medicine, food, and the electricity is missing, even more than before. That means that they want to restore, democracy and all that shit, right? So under democracy, medicine and food and electricity was already missing, because she said even more than before, right? So during the administration of Mohamed Bazoum, it wasn't enough medicine, food, and electricity was missing. So now the Nigerian government has cut off the electricity to Niger. The sanctions have closed the border, so now they can't get food and supplies for their people, right? So now they're punishing the people of Niger just to apply pressure on the military government, right? The people they claim they love and they care about, the people they say they want to establish democracy for, they're gonna punish them. They're gonna make them suffer just to put pressure on the military government, right? When according to them, under democracy, there wasn't even enough medicine, food, or electricity. So now they've exacerbated the problem even more than before, according to them. And they said we need to punish the innocent women and children even more just to weaken the military government, right? Like, listen, man, listen. There is no feminism. There is no female solidarity at this level of the game. This white woman, forget that feminism bullcrap. She's riding with her European men, the political and economic interests of her European men. She is willing to punish innocent African women and African girls to maintain the interests of her own men. That feminism nonsense, it doesn't exist at the highest levels of power. Women at that level of power, they're riding for their men. They're riding for their race. Now let's continue. Now, first of all, who the hell is Emanuela Del Rey? Take a look up on the screen. Emanuela Del Rey is an Italian politician who has been serving as the European Union Special Representative to the Sahel since 2021. Okay, let's continue. Now, this is an Italian publication. I translated the webpage. This headline says, pressures and sanctions. In this way, we will be able to expel the rebel generals. And on the bottom, it says, the interview with the European Union representative for the Sahel, she said, the military is divided. It is by focusing on this rift between them that we try to find a solution and avoid an armed conflict. Man, they saying it out loud, brother. Divide and conquer out loud, man. That's why why you think I preach unity so much on my channel? Why do you think I preach camaraderie so much on my channel? Because it is through our divisions and disagreements that our enemies and our adversaries are able to empower themselves. Now, let's continue. I told you today was going to be a jam-packed episode. Now, take a look up on the screen. A press release from the military government in Niger has just announced that the French army carried out a clandestine operation last night in Niger to free 16 terrorist leaders arrested in June by the Nigerian army. Now, let's continue. The military government has now announced in a press release that the alert level of the armed forces have been raised. This decision follows a terrorist attack on a National Guard post, and the military government is now accusing France of having released terrorists in the region. Similar speeches have been given by the military governments of Mali and Burkina Faso. The military government also accuses the French army of having sent an A400M from Chad to Niger, cutting off all communications as it entered the country's airspace. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I told y'all, bro. I told y'all. Now take a look up on the screen. Earlier today, a French A400M military aircraft took off from Chad and entered stealth mode to breach Niger's airspace between 6:39 a.m. and 11:15 a.m. This modus operandi is similar to that previously used by the French forces to provide support to their terrorist associates in Mali. Man, listen, bro, the Sahel going crazy right now, bro. The Sahel going crazy. Now, take a look up on the screen. This is what you call an A400M military aircraft. So this is what, according to the military government in Niger, and also similar accusations made by Mali and Burkina Faso in the past of the French government breaching their airspace without their authorization. The military government in Niger said that, early in the morning, late night, when everybody was asleep, the French came through stealth mode, turned off all communications, and entered Nigerian airspace on an A400M. Now let's continue. This pattern of behavior is consistent with France's typical approach whenever an African nation chooses to terminate its military cooperation with them. It is worth mentioning that France, supposedly possessing the largest European army, has been stationed in the Sahel since 2013, allegedly to combat terrorists. However, after a decade, the results are evident. Due to the presence of French troops, terrorists have significantly expanded their territorial control and have infiltrated the entire Sahel. Basically, what they're saying is the French military ain't worth shit. They ain't worth shit, bro. They ain't worth shit. Either they're weak and they're incompetent, or they are working directly with the terrorists in the Sahel themselves to destroy the Sahel. It's either one of those two options. Either the French army is weak, or it's giving supplies and support directly to the terrorists to dismantle the Sahel. It's only those two options. Now let's continue. We have also been informed that the leadership of French intelligence, DGSE, was reprimanded by President Macron for blatant unprofessionalism for their failure to predict the coup in Niger. Now, the DGSE, I believe that is the French equivalent of the CIA, the French equivalent of the MI6, etc., etc. Their intelligence agency in France. And basically, apparently, the French CIA and the French military ain't worth shit. Now, let's continue. In every public statement, the coup leaders of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger say that NATO sponsorship of terrorists in Libya destroyed their countries. Mali and Burkina Faso have asked the UN and the African Union on Tuesday to prevent by all possible means any military intervention in Niger. In a joint letter addressed to the AU Peace and Security Council and the UN Security Council, the foreign ministers of Burkina Faso and Mali, Olivier Rumba and Abdoulaye Diop, said the extent of the consequences of military intervention would be unpredictable. Now, if you take a look up on the screen, you see a joint letter from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of both Burkina Faso and Mali. You can pause the video and take a look at that. And like I said before, man, we're gonna pay homage to some of the women today, man. Some of the women that stand in solidarity with the brothers. For example, take a look up on the screen. Olivia Rumba, the foreign minister of Burkina Faso. Also, Natalie Yam providing a lot of in-depth real-time information. Much love to her. Much love to her. She riding with the brother. She riding with the black man. Also, I'm going to play a video of hers towards the end of this video as well. Much love to her, man. Like I said, when I see these women, I see our foremothers. I see our women that were standing side by side with the black man when the invaders came. Those women that were standing side by side with the black man, ready to die with the black man. We're not talking about the women that switched sides. We're not talking about the women that ran off with the white man. We talking about the black women that stayed and died with the black man, that sacrificed their life and died with the... I will always venerate those amazing, illustrious ancestors. Now, let's continue. Also, I'm going to play a video from this beautiful lady right here on the screen. I believe her name is Anamita Diallo. She is a military woman in the armed forces of Guinea. And the other day, she actually put out a statement saying that any act of aggression against Niger will be seen also as an act of aggression against Guinea. She basically denounced any military intervention in Niger, and she said that the military government in Guinea is standing in solidarity with not only Niger, but also Mali and Burkina Faso. So, this beautiful lady right here, man, when I see her, man, I see the beautiful black woman that was standing side by side with the black man on the Haitian Revolution during those many military encounters on the West African coast when the invaders came. When I see these women, this is why I only deal with a certain type of black women, though. A certain type of black women, man. You see the white man, he got his women riding for him. You see the white man, Victoria Nuland, that diplomat from the United States that came on behalf of Anthony Blinken. You saw Emanuela Del Rey, that Italian politician, talking about we need to apply more sanctions. We need to crush the people even more. You see the white man, he got his white women riding for him. But you see the black man, we got our women riding for us too. Yeah, we're not talking about the swirlers and the divestors. We're not talking about them. We're not talking about them women. We talking about the women that really riding with the black man. For that, I'm always love them women. That's why I only deal with black women, man. I'm telling you. Now let's continue. But anyways, man, before I get out of here, I'm going to play a series of videos. The first one coming from Natalie Yam, talking about the whole situation in West Africa right now. The second one coming from a high-ranking military official in the military of Mali, speaking on the situation. And then I'm going to see And then I'm going to play a video from the beautiful lady up on the screen. Oh my God. What's her name? I don't want to butcher her name. Aminata Diallo. Yes, Aminata Diallo, a military woman from Guinea, also expressing herself. So let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. We out.
Today, France is trying to rally all Europeans around the reconquest of the African continent. In the paradigm underlying this aggression, our patriot African leaders don't matter. Our institutions don't matter. It's only what they decide over there that counts. They are certain that there will always be local accomplices, local puppets on the grounds, like the ECOWAS or the African Union sellout leadership, to ensure their orders are executed. But while these may be true for some African leaders, it's no longer the case for the African people. The French have not evolved. They fail to realize the generational shift that has occurred in Africa. The post-independence era, with the likes of Senghor or Houphouët, who swore allegiance to French domination, is over. The ones who followed, who studied in France, the UK or the US, and only felt truly African when following instructions from the Élysée Palace, the Quai d'Orsay, the White House or Downing Street, are becoming the minority. Today we are facing a new generation of Africans who do not accept to be told that they are not at home when they go to France or Europe. And when they are in Africa or return here, they also encounter French people who say, "We decide what happens in your country and our interests come first." This new generation of Africans, whether in civilian clothes or in military uniforms, no longer accepts this. It's over. Africa belongs to Africans, and we are going to ensure that they get this message perfectly straight by any means necessary. My name is Natalie Yam, and I'm one of the worst nightmares of Western colonialists in West and Central Africa. Francophone Africa is the weakest link in Africa's emancipation. I call upon all economic and political freedom fighters of Southern Africa, Eastern Africa, Northern Africa, and the diaspora to unite with us, to enable us to kick France and the West out of our continent and finally exercise our sovereignty to take off towards progress, prosperity, and stability. Amandla.
Que ça fait plus de 10 ans que le Burkina Faso, le Mali et le Niger gérons les conséquences négatives, conséquences socio-économiques, conséquences sécuritaires, conséquences politiques, conséquences humanitaires de l'aventure hasardeuse de l'OTAN en Libye. Bien entendu, se pose la question, si ça nous a pris 10 ans, accepter encore une autre aventure de la même nature au Niger nous prendrait combien d'années? On ne sait pas, 20 ans, 30 ans, 40 ans, 50 ans. Une chose est sûre, le président Goïta et le président Traoré ont clairement dit non, non et non. Nous n'accepterons pas d'intervention militaire au Niger. Il en va de notre survie.
Depuis le 26 juillet 2023, le peuple de Guinée, à sa tête le Comité national du Rassemblement pour le développement, CNRD, suit avec beaucoup d'intérêt l'évolution de la situation sociopolitique en République sœur du Niger, qui a conduit à la prise de responsabilité par le Conseil national pour la sauvegarde de la patrie, CNSP. Les autorités guinéennes rendent un hommage aux braves populations du Niger pour leur sens élevé de patriotisme et saluent l'esprit républicain et la maturité des forces de défense et de sécurité qui ont privilégié l'intérêt supérieur de leur nation en choisissant de se réunir pour trouver ensemble des solutions aux problèmes nigériens. Le CNRD reste convaincu que les nouvelles autorités mettront tout en œuvre pour garantir la stabilité et la concorde au Niger et dans la sous-région. Les mesures de sanctions préconisées par la CEDEAO, incluant une intervention militaire, est une option qui ne saurait être une solution aux problèmes actuels, mais entraînerait un désastre humain dont les conséquences pourraient aller au-delà des frontières du Niger. De ce fait, le CNRD s'abstient d'appliquer ces sanctions illégitimes et inhumaines contre le peuple frère et les autorités nigériennes et exhorte la CEDEAO à revenir à de meilleurs sentiments. La République de Guinée réaffirme par ce communiqué sa vision panafricaniste en apportant sa solidarité à la population nigérienne et en invitant les nouvelles autorités du CNSP à préserver l'unité et la cohésion nationale. Le CNRD souligne qu'une intervention militaire contre le Niger entraînerait de facto la dislocation de la CEDEAO. De même, les peuples frères du Mali, du Burkina Faso, du Niger et de la Guinée aspirent à plus de reconnaissance et de respect de leur souveraineté. Par ailleurs, le CNRD tient à préciser que les sanctions prises et les menaces proférées lors du sommet du 30 juillet 2023 n'engagent nullement la République de Guinée. Au moment où les jeunes populations de l'espace CEDEAO vivent un drame humain en Tunisie et dans la Méditerranée, la préoccupation des dirigeants de la sous-région devrait être plutôt orientée vers les enjeux stratégiques, socio-économiques pour l'atteinte de leurs aspirations que de se pencher sur le sort des présidents déchus.
Reincarnated, I'm back in original fashion. I left on a horse and came back in the ass, and I left with abundance and came back to famine. We used to be pyramids, now we be rapping. Look how the mighty have fallen. Used to be running, now we be walking. When you be cooning, that's when they applauded. Selling your soul, your sons and your daughter. Gotta come up in this shit, they stuck in the mix. Really, my heart it be breaking. That's why I'm stacking that paper and handle my business. Pass it down in generation. Talking about money and power and building a nation. That's a deadly combination. Never be watching the TV, they pushing agendas, falsifying information. Know they got malice intentions. Step in the room and I'm feeling the tension. Enemy watching, he blocking my vision. Paying for the check cause I need my redemption. Building my kingdom, I need it protected. Ready for war like a young Money Congo. Never decided the team is the motto. Up in the crib and I'm whipping up waffles. Up in the crib and I'm smoking gelato. I'm chilling, I'm taking my pain and make it ambition. I'm blessed by the gods, but I ain't religious. I came for the power, they came for the bitch. They making no hourly wage, I got business. This shit is an art and they could never be taught. Selling my soul, I can never be bought. Play with my money, I see you ain't caught. Run to the check and I do it for sport. Babylon falling, I go to the source. Packing my luggage and go overseas. Shorty be with me and she so elite. Shorty be chocolate, I'm calling her Hershey. Secret intelligence probably gon' murk me. Don't fuck with brands cause nigga I'm Haitian. Say the wrong shit and you're smacking their faces.